I still can't forget the day when I found out that the company I believed was mine didn't even have my name on it. I still remember the night we signed the lease. It was raining outside. Not the dramatic kind of rain you see in movies, just a steady, quiet rain that makes everything feel possible. We were sitting in my car because neither of us could afford proper office furniture yet. Just two grown men with big dreams and not enough money. Michael looked at me and said, "Mark, I swear to you, one day we're going to laugh about this." I believed him. God, I believed him. Back then it wasn't his company. It wasn't my company. It was ours. He had the idea. I had the savings. He had the charisma. I had the patience. He had the confidence. I had the stability. When he couldn't pay his share of the first supplier invoice, I paid it. When payroll came and the account was short, I covered it. When the landlord wanted a personal guarantee, it was my signature on the line. And every single time, he would grab my shoulder and say, "I couldn't do this without you." Those words meant everything to me. I would go home late, exhausted, but proud. My wife, Sarah, would ask, "How's our business doing?" And I would smile. "Our business is growing." I showed her spreadsheets. I showed her projections. I showed her plans for the future. I didn't show her the overdraft notices. I didn't show her the personal loans I quietly took out to keep us afloat. Because I wasn't just investing money, I was investing identity. For 3 years, I worked like a man possessed. I handled operations, vendors, hiring, logistics, problems he didn't even know existed. Michael handled clients. He was the face, the smile, the handshake, and slowly, it worked. The company grew. We moved from that tiny rented unit into a real office. Glass walls, receptionists, conference room. The first time I saw our logo on the building, I felt something I can't even describe. It felt like validation, like sacrifice had the purpose. Michael hugged me that day in front of the team and said, "This man right here, he's the backbone of everything." Everyone clapped. I stood there, embarrassed, proud, overwhelmed. I thought loyalty was being rewarded. I didn't know I was being positioned, because while I was fixing problems inside the company, he was restructuring it, quietly. Meetings I wasn't invited to, lawyers I never met, documents I never saw. I trusted him. Why wouldn't I? He was my friend. We started this together. I had his back when nobody else believed in him. I defended him when investors doubted him. I put my own credit score on the line for him. Why would I ever imagine that my name was disappearing? The day everything changed wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no fight, just paperwork. A new investor was coming in. Big money, expansion. It should have been celebration. Instead, it was clarification. We were sitting in the conference room. Lawyers present. Stacks of documents. Michael kept talking about growth, opportunity, scale. Then one of the lawyers slid a document in front of me. "Mark, you'll remain head of operations under the new structure." Remain head of operations. I remember blinking, waiting for him to laugh, waiting for him to say, "Relax, this is just technical." But he didn't. He avoided my eyes. I flipped through the pages. Ownership structure, share allocation, board members. My name wasn't there, not once, not in the founder section, not in the equity breakdown, not anywhere that mattered. I felt heat rise in my chest. "Michael," I said quietly, "what is this?" He leaned back in his chair like this was just business. "Mark, you know you're invaluable, but legally, the company was always structured under my LLC. Always, always. We started this together. He shook his head slightly. You were more like operational support from the beginning. Operational support. That's when it hit me. All those nights, all those risks, all those sacrifices. In his version of the story, I was staff. I wanted to argue, to scream, to remind him of every invoice I paid, every crisis I solved, every time I chose the company over my family. But something inside me just went quiet. Not explosive anger, just a slow, heavy understanding. I had funded his dream, but I never protected my own. He kept talking about salary increases, bonuses, new titles, as if throwing numbers at me could replace ownership, as if I would be grateful. I walked out of that building that day feeling smaller than when we started, back when we had nothing. At least back then, I had belief. Now I had proof. Proof that loyalty without protection is naive. When I got home, Sarah could see it on my face. What happened? I sat at the kitchen table, and for the first time in years, I didn't have a confident answer. It was never I said, just that. She didn't yell. She didn't panic. She just looked at me with a sadness that hurt more than anger. You gave him everything. I nodded, and that's when the shame came. Not because I was betrayed, but because I ignored the signs. I ignored the missing paperwork. I ignored the vague answers. I ignored my instinct when meetings happened without me, because I didn't want to believe my friend was capable of this. Over the next few months, the company exploded. New funding, media attention, awards. Michael was on podcasts talking about his journey. He mentioned the early days. He mentioned struggle. He mentioned sacrifice. He didn't mention me, not once. I still worked there. Same office, better salary. But every time I saw the logo on the building, it didn't feel like validation anymore. It felt like a reminder. I built something I didn't own. And here's the part nobody talks about. Betrayal doesn't always feel violent. Sometimes it feels administrative, clean, legal, signed, filed, and irreversible. The hardest part wasn't losing equity, it was losing the story I told myself. That loyalty is always reciprocated, that friendship guarantees fairness, that effort automatically equals ownership. It doesn't. Ownership is written, not assumed. If you're listening to this thinking, that could never happen to me, I used to think the same thing, because I wasn't stupid, I wasn't lazy, I wasn't uninvolved, I was just trusting, and trust without documentation is a donation. I don't hate Michael. That's the strange part. He didn't technically lie, he just never corrected my assumption. He let me believe, and sometimes that's worse. Today, I don't work there anymore. I left. Not dramatically, just quietly, the same way my name disappeared. I started over, smaller, slower. But this time, my name is on everything, contracts, accounts, documents. Even if it fail, it's mine. And when I sit with my coffee in the morning now, I don't feel hollow, because this time, I didn't fund someone else's dream. I built my own. And if you ever find yourself building something with someone, don't just invest effort, protect your position, not because you expect betrayal, but because respect should be written, not promised. I learned that the expensive way.